Feeding your mind, feeding your heart. I want to start with, again, acknowledging that there is suffering. And I want to become very explicit in saying, we see you. I am here for you. This Center for Spiritual Living is here for you. This community, practitioners, ministers, to be with you, to see you, to listen to you, and to hold a sacred and healing space for you. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're here this morning. And I want to make sure that, during COVID, of course, we weren't necessarily always present, and so you may have not gotten a directory. The directory is here. I believe Crystal put copies in, I think in the bookstore area. Yes, thank you. So if you didn't get a directory, I invite you to pick one up. And in the back of the directory are the ministers and practitioners with phone numbers and emails. And please reach out. We are here to serve you, to love you, no matter what you're going through. There are also practitioners on call every month, and we realized that some people thought Practitioner of the Month meant that we were acknowledging the practitioner, and while we love the service that they do, we want to make sure that people know that the practitioners are also on call. So please avail yourself of our services. Could you hand me the Veronica? We have our bookmark. It's here somewhere. The theme being just love. And the book, thank you. Appreciate it, Sherry. The book we're reading for March and April is The Love Mindset, an unconventional guide to healing and happiness. And Veronica actually shares her, she called it self-loathing, and how she didn't even allow the love to move through her when it was present, based on her self-loathing, and then became enlightened, not per se by following a particular spiritual path, but by continuing to seek within her the relationship that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. Last time I spoke about the first half of the book. So this particular, where I'm picking up, is page 97, and the chapter title is Who You Really Are. Who you really are. And she speaks to two different identities. Now, I want to make sure that we don't think that's duality. Like driving your car, you have to have the gas pedal and the steering wheel, right? And as living, we must have our mind, our heart, our body. It works together. But we divvy those up just to get clarity. And I really like the way that she defined the two identities. The first one is your core identity. Your authentic self, your spirit, your soul, your inner self, your true self. And then there's the surface self, or the surface identity, which is your external self, your body, your personality, your character, the words you choose, the behaviors that you have, the talents that you have. And she says we often confuse the fact that your core identity is permanent and your surface identity is impermanent. And where we frequently suffer is confusing those two things. Your core does not change. It is pure and it can never be violated. And in our science of mind philosophy, what that means is, yes, our core of who we are is whole, W-H-O-L-E, perfect, and complete. Again, pure and cannot be violated. So your core is not the body because, of course, for the surface identity, our body changes. If we choose, our behavior can change. The words that we choose to talk to ourselves and others can change. We can develop skills and habits. And it's important to distinguish those two because the suffering and the difficulty becomes that people assume a permanence where it's not permanent and impermanence where things are permanent. And I spoke last time a little bit, and that's on YouTube, if you want to go back and put these pieces together, that relationships, are they permanent? Impermanent. And yet love is permanent. But we sometimes confuse that. And here are some other examples. We may say, I am depressed, when we really mean I am feeling depressed. Because the I am depressed soon becomes our identity. In other words, very powerful words, I am. And we want to use those powerful words, I am, with the permanence that we are. I am love. I am joy. I am peace. Because those are permanent. And yes, they're invisible, but they're permanent and they demonstrate in our lives. And as we think, if we think I am depressed or I am suffering, so shall we be, as in we will with our eyes, and I mean both what we see in the world as well as what we see in the third eye or what we envision, is that the world is depressing. But are there parts of the world that are not suffering? Are there parts of the world where we are thriving? And there's nothing wrong with choosing the I am suffering and so I see suffering. There is no wrongness in that. There is a message there for you. Matter of fact, you couldn't know that you're suffering if there wasn't a part of you that knows what non-suffering is. So regardless of the expression that is moving through you, there is a message there. And the question is, do we take the time to ask ourselves and contemplate and reflect, what is the message for me? Which means tuning into your core identity. So the surface self needs to develop a relationship with the core self. And it's important that you develop that relationship, and that's what we call spiritual practice. Practicing, connecting, and developing your relationship with your core self, and lining that up with your surface self to line up and prevent suffering. And we will find that when we seek within ourselves, that indeed that's where the answers are. In other words, how do I get out of my suffering? You shall be guided. And your suffering and how you find a way out is different than your suffering and how you find a way out. Because again, how you're lining up what your expression and who you uniquely are. So the external impermanent self thrives when we accept the permanent internal self. We are energy, are we not? Tell me how energy is moving through your body. Breath. Yes, blood pumping, heart pumping. Thoughts, absolutely. Cells moving around your body, and whether it's kidney cells or stomach cells or digestive cells, all that energy is moving. Now, did we create that energy? No. But did we shape that energy? Yes. And we shape that energy with our minds by the thoughts we choose. We shape that energy by what we choose to eat and drink. And we shape that energy by our exercise or walking. So we don't create the energy, but we shape the energy. And so it is with love. And of course, love sometimes gets confusing because there's the feeling of love and then there's the noun of love. Love is always present. Always. Because life would not exist without love. And the same love is present for you that's present for you. It matters not the impermanent part of you, matters not your gender, your ethnicity, or anything else about the external you. Love is always present and permanent at your core. So do we really create love? We actually shape love. We move that love, whether we give it, receive it, withhold it, offer it, circulate it. Love is always there. It's what we do with it. So our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, wrote the Science of Mind textbook, and in chapter 2, the way it works. How much love can we have? How much love can we demonstrate? It is abundant, it is unlimited, it is bountiful, but you will only receive, or you can only have and demonstrate as much love as you're willing to believe, to see, looking for it, to see, visioning it, what you can accept and open to, what you can use in your consciousness. That much is what we can have. So if it's unlimited, bountiful, and abundant, it's only limited by us. So it's up to us to allow love, to move love through us, to understand that that's our core identity, and to keep aligning our external identity up with that. So Veronica, I really appreciate the way that she is able to articulate things. I really have enjoyed the book. She says that our society has a little bit of love hunger. Love hunger. It's abundant. Love is abundant, but we have love hunger. How does she talk about that? Well, you see separation, loneliness, otherness thinking, suffering. We see it through giving equals getting. I love you, so you will love me. Acts of love go unnoticed. Certain people disdain loving actions. People withhold love for others. And I want you to love me to affirm me. And again, the way that she is able to explain that if we are looking on the outside at all that love hunger, we start to believe that love is not readily available for us. So where do we need to go? Back to our core. Back to our core. And when we have embodied the love mindset, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, then we're constantly realizing and becoming aware that love is overflowing in the wind, in the trees, in the garden, life expressing through Mother Earth, life expressing through you. Love overflows through life itself. And then we realize that receiving love is always in our own hands. Just as I breathe the air and the air is always available, I can just love because love is always available. And the challenge for us is to love even in the absence of any immediate external reward or recognition of our love. Because acts of love are never wasted, never lost, even when others don't take it in. You have any family members that you just want to love and they just, yeah. It happens. But you never know. You never know the time. And that love that you're offering is still rippling out, even if that person is not receiving. Love will ripple throughout the room, throughout the people you speak to, and everywhere you go. Because love is not dependent on how people respond to you. And that's a hard one, is it not? Yeah. Yeah, which again is why we keep reminding ourselves and do our spiritual practice as a discipline to bring ourselves back to the center and to the truth. Not what we're seeing out there, what we know here, beginning here. You are love. You are love overflowing. You are open and receptive to allowing the ripple of love. The ripple of love. Now, some people might say, well, I'm not a Mother Teresa, or I'm not a, who would you say? Gandhi. Who else? Buddha. Don't deny yourself. Do not deny yourself. You have just put a limit on yourself. These people show you what is possible. And the same love that was at their core is at the same love that is at your core. No self-denial. No self-denial. Let the love gush. She also speaks about spiritual anorexia. Again, she's got some great connotations here. There's an epidemic of people starving of love. And they haven't started here. Maybe based on the way they were raised, past religious injuries, whatever it may be, that they don't understand that there is this permanent self at your core. And no coercion is needed for those that love themselves. And sometimes we're just blind to what we are blocking in ourselves to see and feel and express more love. So technically, you can never run out of love. Although what I really want to get to, especially in these times, feeding your heart, feeding your mind, is that, it's not really post-COVID. But as things change regarding COVID, I read this article, resilience is about how you recharge, not how you endure. What is it that you endure? That's not really where we need to be for resilience. And this article speaks a lot about how people don't really understand recharging. Why? Because, when we're on our phones or computers, which, that's what I do for my job, our brain is like a dopamine, excitement, next. And then we sit down and we go, now what do I do? Because our brain has been fed all this stimulation. And just like people might brag about that they had an all-nighter to finish something, that's not recharging. Just like your body needs to recharge, your brain needs to be recharged, and so does your heart, because it's all interconnected. Eckhart Tolle says, "You are never more essentially yourself than when you are still." And it made me think that if somebody asked who I am, I don't think about my stillness. So on page 210, Veronica says, "I am an advocate of the ever-present life that moves powerfully through every moment. And I'm not affected by something as feeble as approval or something as short-lived as rejection. I am what I am, and I do what I do. I am love, and I act out of love. And so I say, just love." Namaste. And now the special cherry on top.